Hi, I'm Holly Pike. If you'd like a trial of the Generation software that I use for digitizing, please visit trygenerations.com. This video is a recording of a live video I did for my previous students. You may hear references to You Can Digitize or YCD. That's my old website that is now closed. My new website is digitizingschool.com. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Is about density. We need to talk about density and object density before I talk to you about creating multiple objects within objects, on top of objects, next to objects. We need to talk about density. Density has to do with the distance between your lines of stitching. It determines how thick your embroidery gets and how hard or easy it is for the needle to get through the fabric and the thread that's already laid down. Density is very critical to good digitizing. If you've ever seen a design that you stitch it and it puckers up, it just puckers up really bad, and the fabric's all puckered and everything, that means the density and the push and pull compensation is not correct, is not set correct. The Generation software does an amazing job with those things. I have density, stitch angle, and pull compensation and overlap still to talk to you about. But the software is amazing, it's smart, and it does a really good job for you with a lot of these things. But I need you to understand density in order for me to talk with you about changing it and why you need to change it. Okay, yeah, just turn off the pre-close. You'll be fine, Denise. Okay, so let's talk about density. Density has to do with the space between each line of stitching. And you might say, why does that mean something is thicker or thinner? Well, okay, let's investigate that. I'm going to turn on my little tool. If this line right here is a line of stitching, well, let's go back and let's do this. If this line right here is a line of stitching, this blue line, and then you have a line above that, like this. The distance between here and here, based on how we have our density set, is 0.50 millimeters. Okay? That's the density I like. But now, if I take and do a line here, the distance here is still 0.5. But the distance here is 1.0. So what I'm trying to show you is that the higher this number goes, the less density. Okay? More distance between lines, the less density. That's important, because now if I go here, my distance here is 0.25. So the closer together these lines are, the lower the number, the higher the density. More stitches. Okay? Higher number, less density, less stitches. Lower the number of density, the higher the density, the more stitches. We control our density. I'm going to make a box. I'm going to change the color of the box because I really don't like that blue. Oh, we'll make it red. Okay. We control our density in a couple of ways. First one is we'll right click on the object and we can change it right here in the quick density box. You can change and put a new number in there. Or we can go up to, we can hit our space bar, right click on the object, hit the space bar, and we get all of these options. We'll go into complex fill because that's what it is, and we can change our density right here. If it's just a quick change, you can change it down here, no big deal. So I'm going to make this say 1.00. So now I doubled the number, I made the number twice as high. Watch what happens. See what happens? See how much more open that got? Well, what if I double the number again? See how much more open it got? Now, all these lines in between, this is our stitch angle right here. Now, you need to really pay attention here. This is our stitch angle right here. That's how our stitches are going. The other lines going this way is our underlay. The underlay is about twice as open or less density than the cover stitches. We cannot have embroidery or objects without underlay because then your fabric will pucker. All kinds of bad things will happen. So our underlay is set for us by the software. It's very smart. We can change it, but it's set for us by the software. This is part of the magic of this software. It's very, very smart and intuitive. So if our stitch direction is going this way and our underlay is going this way, we have two directions at work. Density has a large, is determined by your underlay and your top stitching. Okay, if your top stitching changes, your underlay changes. It's automatic. If you hit your space bar and you go right here to underlay, our underlay is set for us already. It's already set for us. So we're going to leave that alone for now until you're more advanced, and then we can play with the underlay. Yes, puckering can also mean that you hooped and pulled the fabric tight in your hoop and it stretched the fabric, so we don't want to do that. If I need to do a hooping video, you need to let me know. Okay, so we have density. What happens, here's a stitch count right down here, 3,734. You may not be able to see that, but the stitch count is 3,734. If I change my density down to the original software default, my stitch count changes to 11,629, which means in this 3 by 3 area, there are 11,000 stitches. Don't you think your machine just might have trouble with that? I'm thinking it might. That's why when I had you change your preferences to 0.50, we took 2,000 stitches out of that stitch count. Density plays a very important role in your digitizing because as you overlap things, you have to adjust your densities. We're going to do that in later classes, but you need to understand what density is. Density has to do with how close or far away your lines are. And look how close the lines are now. This is your underlay going, this is your underlay, the straight ones. This is your stitches. Look at how tight together they are because we changed the density. So much more stitches in there. When you get things that are really, heavy in density and they're tough to stitch out, that's why they did not adjust their density. Okay, then there's something else we need to be concerned about with the density is if you're overlapping things. I'm going to go over that in later videos and later classes. But if you just understand that the higher the number, when you're working here, the higher the number, less density. Okay? Lower the number, more density. more dense, more thick. And that's this number right here. That's your density number. Okay, this ends the density module.